Limmy's World of Glasgow. Tom.
As a Christian, a true Christian, I am not a big fan of Santa, which is funny because every year around this time I begin to look like him. Not that I transform into him in the same way that Tim Allen's character did in his film The Santa Claus, but my waistline seems to double in size between the months of October and December. I really can't explain it. It could be part of God's intelligent design, making me want to eat more as the cold winter days come ever closer, in order to have a warm, thick layer of blubber like a sea lion, like Santa. My waistline had expanded to such a degree that it was time to buy a bigger belt, and so I headed to John Lewis to fetch one. As I tried on the belt in the changing room, I heard a couple enter the changing room area. It became obvious that it was the man who was trying on his garments. He was saying to his girlfriend or his wife, "Gonna stay out there and tell me if this suits me when I come out." His partner replied, "No, I'm heading to Boots. Get me round at Boots, alright?" He said, Okay, I'll get you there then." And I could hear him enter the changing room opposite mine. I heard his curtain open, I heard his curtain close, and I heard him undress. By that point, I had tried on my belt and I was happy with it. In a normal situation, I would have left my changing room, headed to the tills, and made my purchase. But this was no ordinary situation. I knew, after having entered the changing room area and witnessing that there was no one in any of the other changing rooms, that I was alone here with this man. And since it was 11 a.m. on a Thursday, the place was dead, and I knew I would be alone with him for a few minutes more. A realization entered my head. It would be an absolute dawdle for me to take that man's life. There are no cameras in the changing rooms, for I have read that they must put up a sign telling you that they are doing so, which they hadn't, and therefore they weren't. There was no assistant standing there with the little discs with the numbers on them. And, as I said, there was a window of opportunity, as they say. I thought I could slowly pull back this curtain, walk over to his curtain, pull his curtain back like the shower scene from Psycho, and overpower him while he was half in and half out of his new clothes. It would only be a simple, straightforward matter of crashing his head off the mirror. But then I thought, "No, Tom, don't do that. Use your belt." I thought, of course, I could wander over to his changing room with my new belt held at neck height. I could kick the curtain to the side and have it wrapped around his neck like a boa constrictor, and use it to simultaneously bash his head against the mirror and choke him to death, and, if I was lucky, break his neck. But then I noticed the wooden coat hangers that had been left behind on the rail in my changing room. I could rush into his changing room, and using a combination of the belt and the coat hanger, garrote him, as it was done during the Spanish Inquisition. The idea tickled me. However, it would be more risky than my previous idea. By the time I pulled back his curtain, I would have seconds to organise the garrote, get it over his head, and begin winding the coat hanger around until he was dead. If only I could stun him in some way. And then it hit me. Tom, why are you here in the first place? It's because you have grown bigger, heavier. You have grown into a leviathan. But it is not a weakness. It is a strength. Pull back your curtain. Get on your marks. Get set. And propel yourself forward through his curtain and into his changing room like a juggernaut. If that doesn't knock him for 6, nothing will. And so I began to prepare. In my left hand I held the belt. In my right hand I held the coat hanger. And down I squatted like a mammoth Linford Christie, ready to break the 100 metres world record. As I was down there in that kneeling, squatting position, I was reminded of prayer. I was reminded of worship. The full gravity of the moral crime I was about to commit struck me with force. I brought the palms of my hands up from the floor and put them together and prayed, Jesus, Lord, me again. It's your wee boy, Tom. I was about to do it again. Heal me! Heal me! But whether the Lord was ready to heal me or not, I never did find out. For I heard the chap in the changing room shout, What the F? I looked up and I could see one of his eyes reflected off the mirror inside his changing room, looking at me through a gap in his curtain. I must have appeared to be looking under his curtain, quite literally a peeping Tom. There was no way I was shutting up this man now. It was time to run. I ran out of my changing room, out of the changing room area, and sprinted as fast as I could out of that shop. And because I was still keeping a hold of the belt so that I would not leave any fingerprints behind, I must have looked like a very conspicuous and extremely amateurish shoplifter. A security guard made the mistake of running into my path, for although the man was built more than enough to grapple delinquents and women, he was simply no match for my momentum. I bulldozed him down like he was made of tissue paper, and I proceeded to charge my way through the shop in this fashion, like a minnie careering through the streets of Italy in the Italian Job, until I was out of John Lewis, out of the Buchanan Centre, and completely out of breath. So there I was, this fat, tubby man with rosy red cheeks, holding a big black belt that I had gifted to myself. It seems like me and Santa have got quite a lot in common after all.